Hey guys, so I just did this video for the second time. um, the YouTube live stream did not save it, so I'm starting it again. Anyways, as you could tell by the title, this is actually about coming from the New Age to Jesus. It's a very surprising testimony. I never thought I would actually come on and do something like this. So anyways, I'm recording it again because it just deleted. So maybe because I'm more warmed up, it's okay. Maybe I'll just cut to the chase more and make it a little more streamlined, hopefully. So I just wanted to start off this video by just letting you know that this is a testimony from me to come from sort of the New Age industry, which I had spent most of my life. Since I was like at least 11 is when I started really getting into that. And until last year, that's when I made the commitment to come to Jesus and to accept him as my Lord and Savior. And so this is sort of an overview of kind of what life was like before, what happened to bring me to this decision, because I was probably the most unlikely person to ever make this choice. I can't even believe I'm making this video. By the grace of God, he plucked me out of my darkness and revealed himself to me in a way that I would understand. And he approached me in a way that only he could, and he broke through my walls in the way that only he can. And I'm so grateful for that. And so just to give you a bit of a background, so I came from, like, I guess, a Greek Orthodox upbringing. I only went to church a few times as a kid when I was staying with my grandma. But I remember, it's very Catholic, so there was a lot of ritual and stuff like that. There was the priest, and I just remember getting turned off from all religion from that, to be honest with you. It just seemed, something in me didn't feel like it was right. So I kind of just put the blanket on all religion, like, not for me. And my mom was really open-minded, and I remember since I was about 11 years old or so, when I started to think about these things, she gave me a book about the world's religions. She said you could pick one, you could not. She was also the kind of mom that had all these spiritual books around, reading palms, psychics, the Course in Miracles, all this stuff was around us. And so, or in our library. So I was just diving into all things. I remember getting into Nostradamus and all these astral projections. And, even at a young age, like, my mind was just so hungry for the spiritual. I had always felt really sensitive as a kid, and I had always been drawn to the other kind of realm naturally, just who I am. And I just was trying to find answers to understand stuff, because the world I was living in was so black and white and material based. And it just didn't quite seem to have the whole picture for me. And I was just so hungry and thirsty for knowledge and understanding and what's going on with me, and why aren't other people like me, and why is, all these kind of things. So I was on this major crusade to learn as much as I could, getting into all things from meditation to working with different teachers. I did Vipassana retreats. I did Chakra Healing. Honestly, you name it. I had definitely done it. And I thought I was getting closer and closer to the truth. And so this is sort of, I'm thinking, if I don't feel good enough yet, it's because I haven't acquired enough information. I haven't acquired enough knowledge or ancient teachings, or I'm not spiritual enough or enlightened enough. So there's always this hunger and craving that just never quite got satisfied with this search that I was on. But I thought it was the right path. And I just sort of decided to one day go traveling around the world for about a year. And I remember having this incredible revelation, this deep, powerful meditation moment. And ever since that moment, I became incredibly in tune to other people. And now I don't really understand what specifically happened in that time frame, but I remember, I could be around other people and I would have these insights about them. I could know things about them, and I was so fascinated by it, and they were true. And so it's not too long after that, was my mid-20s, not too long after that, I started to create my own business around, I called it coaching, but essentially it was like kind of psychic work or intuitive healing, where I would literally feel people's emotions within my own body, help reflect that back to them, help them work through it and heal it. And so I thought I was doing God's work, to be honest. I thought I was helping people heal from trauma. I felt amazing because I could actually use a sensitive gift that I had, that I felt so outside of society with, and I could actually plug myself into society. I felt like I had a place. And so I had been doing that for about 12 years before I had a major illness. So just last year, I got sick with chronic fatigue. Actually, it was about a year and a half ago now. So not this past sort of February, but actually around spring of the year prior to that. I can't remember if that's 2018. Anyway, so I got hit so hard with chronic fatigue. Basically, I was bedridden for about 8 months. I could get out of bed for about an hour a day, and that was the best that I could do. And I was getting better and better each month because I was on this like crazy detox plan where I was just eating vegetables and fruit, essentially, with a little bit of meat for about, I guess for the whole 8 months. And each month I was getting progressively better, so I could start getting out of bed longer. But it was so difficult to navigate life during that time because I had been so fiercely independent. I was super type A. So I had just had my daughter. I was continuing to run my business from home and also my office. And I was going back and forth, and I was growing the business, and it was becoming more online. And I was just going hard. I just didn't stop. And so finally, I got this chronic fatigue. It landed me on the bed, and my whole family had to adjust to the fact that I was no longer able to work. I couldn't take care of my daughter. My husband had to step in full time. And it was just everything in that one moment just was stripped away. So I had zero career, zero health, zero, certain friends fell away. It was just a really depressing time. But I do believe God used that time to kind of attune my ear to him, because I was quite humble during that time. There was a lot that was taken away, and I didn't have much left. And I remember kind of just being more open to the idea of God. Now, I had always been open to God. I always thought God existed, but to me, it was more like internally. It was an internal God. But I had this woman helping me with my health. She was getting me back onto my diet plan of just like detoxing the body. She also included prayer. She was like, okay, you can do prayer. Or when you do prayer, pray to God, pray to someone, to God who's outside of you. And I thought that was such a weird concept because I had been meditating and I was essentially God. So I started praying to her recommendations. She was super spiritual like I was, but new age style, but she still prayed. She goes, pray to God, pray to Jesus, because she had a personal relationship with him. But that's not uncommon for new age people. We believe that Jesus was an ascended master at times. Some of us do anyway, and that he was the Christ consciousness, that he was there to show us as an example of how to live and be enlightened. And so she had this kind of perspective, and I shared it too. I had a personal experience with him in my 20s, and I kind of had a soft spot for him as well, but not in the religious mindset, more of a new age spiritual kind of. So anyway, I would pray. So I prayed. My first time praying was really awkward and uncomfortable. I was so floored by that. I thought, oh my goodness, there's so much pride in my heart. I can't even pray to something outside of me, because I was so used to just meditating. And but there was this real awkwardness of praying outside. It was so humbling. So to me, even if this whole thing even if there was nothing to this whole prayer thing, I was still committed to it because I wanted to push through that awkward pride that kept coming up. So I committed to that almost every day. And in the midst of that, I was starting to get incrementally better. And one week, I remember in particular, my intuition kept coming up with this thought to read the Bible. It says, read the Bible. And I'm going, why on earth would I read the Bible? What is in the Bible that's so important? I mean, maybe there's some interesting allegories in there. Maybe there's like some hidden knowledge that I can dig up. I don't know, because I'm certainly not going to take it at face value. But I kind of pushed it aside. It happened again. The second day it happened, I was paying more attention to it, but I was kind of just also going, whatever, there's nothing in the Bible for me. And then I remember the third time it happened, I was like, okay, fine. I'm going to go and I'm going to, I'm going to go and I'll just put it on my Amazon cart and I'll get it later. So I remember I found a Bible. I had no idea what kind of Bible to get. There's so many. And I was just like, whatever, I'll just pick this one, put it on my cart. I didn't buy it, but I went about my day. And a couple days later, I went to go visit a friend. I was starting to get out of the house a little bit to do like one activity basically a day. And I remember meeting her for tea. And I remember this woman coming in the opposite direction towards me. And she was well dressed, looking like mid-40s kind of person. She's, totally well-to-do person coming towards me. I don't know if she was had a hands-free set, that she was talking on the phone when she said this, because I can't quite understand why somebody would say what she was about to say. I'll just tell you in a second. But I couldn't tell. So she's coming towards me, same pace. She keeps the pace the whole time. And as she's about a meter away from me, she looks right at me and she goes, read the Bible. She basically echoed what my intuition had said to me all week in that moment. And she just kept walking and off she went. And I bought the Bible. I was in my Amazon cart. I was like, okay, I'm going to get this Bible. Even though in my mind, I'm still saying, I don't think there's anything in here. This is not something I'm going to take face value because it was written by men who are trying to control people. This is all my belief. But I'm thinking, okay, well, this is too crazy for it to, I got to just obey this, just listen to my intuition, trust it. And so I did, bought it, went straight to Revelation, read that, was curious about what happens at the end. Read some of the New Testament, but, not really diving into it too deeply. I didn't really give it too much thought, to be honest with you. Although there was a woman who I was following her work. She had healed from a major illness naturally, and she had created this whole program on how to heal. And I was still in my healing process, so I was kind of interested in lots of new information. So I started reading her material, and in that, she actually sprinkled in the gospel. I had never heard the gospel, even though I went to church, but she sprinkled it in. Jesus came as fully man, fully God. He lived the life we should be living. He died the death we should actually have. We broke the commandments. His blood paid the debt of that. And I just didn't quite, it was such a revelation for me because I knew Jesus died, but I didn't quite understand why he died on the cross. And she clarified that. And so in my mind, I have the gospel now. I have a Bible. But again, none of these pieces are clicking for me until one day I remember having this argument with my husband. And I just remember feeling so heavy. And like, here I am, not able to really get my life together. I had to cancel my business. I had to shut it down because I couldn't work. I didn't feel like I was really getting anywhere with my relationship with my husband. We were just kind of bickering about the same things. And it was just, I just remember feeling so, at the end of myself, like this was the best I could do. And this is kind of how far it took me. And that was that. And I just felt like, well, that's the best I can do. It was quite depressing. And I remember sitting in my daughter's room, actually, and she wasn't in there at the moment, but I remember the Lord's Prayer came into my mind. And so after some thinking, the inspiration came on to me to say it. And now for someone like me who had dedicated her whole life as the antithesis of religion, especially Christianity, even to be in that position to even ponder it, like, seems like such a miracle, because it would be the last thing that I thought I would ever want to do, to be honest with you. Like, I thought that Christianity was a dead religion. There was no spirituality within it. I had all these judgments of it, and but God led me there, and I was somewhat open to it. And I remember the Lord's Prayer came into my mind. And I remember thinking to myself, do I really want to do this? Like, what are your parents going to say? What are your friends going to say? What's your family going to say? When you do this, you're going to be like that kind of person that gets made fun of, And I remember mulling that over for about a good 10, 15 minutes. And I was like, you know what? Like, I have no other plan B. This is it. Like, I've gotten to the end of myself. That's the best that I could do. And, I don't have another option here. So I did. So I said the prayer. I just said the prayer from my heart. I felt it. I really meant it. I just asked the Lord to be my savior, to come into my life. I asked him to forgive my sins. I asked him to take my life and use it for his glory. And I just wanted to be done with me running my life now. That was it. And so as soon as I said it, about a good minute or so after I said it, I felt this incredible feeling coming from the top of my head. It was like, and I didn't know anything about the Holy Spirit. So all I knew are the basics of the gospel and like a few pieces of the New Testament, but mostly Revelation. So I didn't have an understanding about what the Holy Spirit was. But as soon as I said it, I got the most amazing feeling. It was like I described it to my husband as someone pouring oil or warm honey from the top of my head. And it just sort of slowly moved down to just down my body. And as it was going down, I just felt the warmth of just pure love, pure joy, pure peace. I'd never felt it. And I would have argued with you that I had experienced all those great things within the whole meditation experience that I had, the whole meditation practice that I had done in my life, but nothing compared to this. This was like a whole nother level. And in that moment, it's as if I was getting a bear hug. Just every cell was just getting just filled with so much joy and so much peace. And if there was any doubt in my mind that I had made the wrong decision or it was silly or whatever, God definitely showed me right away that it was the best decision of my life. And I'm so grateful that he was so, like, I know everyone has a different experience. This happens to be mine. It's not the experience that everyone's supposed to have. It was just how he revealed himself to me. And I'm just so grateful that he made it very clear right away that, yes, I'm with you and I've been leading you here. And yeah, so anyways, as soon as that happened, after that whole experience, I remember being so filled with joy. And not too long after that, I was filled with deep grief or sadness because of the fact that I realized my whole life was just filled with sin. Everything I did was just sinful. And he convicted me of my sins so deeply. So I knew that I had only made like about 3 good decisions that he would have approved of. Everything else was sinful. For example, it was clear to me right away that the 3 good decisions I had made were coming to him, marrying my husband, and having my daughter. Everything else was not of God. Basically it was like the rest of your life was basically for you kind of thing. And I just remember being so convicted. My heart was so heavy. I couldn't believe I had lived so selfishly. It all just happened in an instant. It was like scales fell from my eyes and I could see things that I had never seen before. And he was so, he showed me these like within an instant, like lightning speed. And yeah, so in that song, Amazing Grace came into my mind and I was like, that's what that means. It says, I once was blind and now I see. I had heard that song before, it meant nothing to me. And in that moment, I realized that's what it means. I was blind and now I see. And it's through God's grace that we actually even can see. So anyways, I also was convicted right away, right soon after that, about the New Age movement being basically the original sin. So, Satan tempted Eve by saying you could be like God. I realized he convicted me right away. He was like, this New Age movement is essentially like the original sin, you trying to be like God. And I felt that so strongly. I was like, I have been trying to be like God. I've been trying to have all these deep spiritual gifts. I've been diving into the occult to learn all this stuff. And I thought that was the way. And he was like, that was the original sin. So he convicted that of me. And this is all happening within a matter, I think, of seconds, to be honest with you. I just remember being in complete tears, this combination of joy and just being so convicted of my sin. So this sort of deep pain in my heart too, that I had been living so selfishly. It was just this combination. And then my eyes opening to the fact that all of a sudden it was like the Bible's real. Jesus is real. What he says he did is real. Take it word for word. This is not an occultic, you got to dig through the truth, dig through it to find some nuggets of truth. It's there, it's clear. And it was just so immediate that it hit me like a ton of bricks. So anyways, that's essentially what happened. Since then, that's been about a little bit under a year now. I've been just enjoying walking with the Lord and having him guide. And I'm certainly not perfect, but I just have this joy about me that I've never actually had before. Even though I would have told you I was super happy back in my old life, I can definitely say that this is like, you can't even compare it. And so I'm just so grateful that God found me. I wasn't even searching for him at all, actually. And I'm just so floored that he plucked me out of that darkness. And there was nothing, I was doing everything to not deserve it, never mind, so there was nothing I was doing to draw him to me. And it's so humbling when you realize that there's nothing you can do to create that kind of salvation. And so he's just, all the glory goes to him. And I'm just so grateful for the people around me who prayed for me. I know that some people did pray for me. I actually had an experience where January last year, I woke up and I felt like, oh, in my mind right away, I could tell, I'm like, Grace just prayed for me. And I didn't know that Christians prayed for salvation. So I thought this friend of ours was just praying for my health. And I can't explain it other than like I worked in that spiritual realm. So I could just tell as soon as I woke up, I could feel something was in motion. I was like, Grace. And I knew it was Grace, our friend. And anyway, so after I got saved, I actually checked with her. I was like, Grace, I'm going to ask you a really awkward question or strange question, but by any chance, did you pray for me? And she told me she did. And I was like, when? And she said, well, the first week of January, we do a week of prayer and fasting. And you were the person that I was praying for to get saved. So that same month that I woke up last year, so I just want to say that prayer is so powerful. And even if someone looks so far gone, like they are so far from what you can see, just know that God can obviously pluck anybody out of darkness. He certainly did for me. And I'm so grateful for the people who prayed for me. And I'm so grateful that it is based on nothing that I did to deserve it. And it's just all on him. So I just wanted to share that with you. Hopefully, if there's someone who's going through something that I went through, and maybe you're not a believer, but you're kind of curious about this, or maybe you are, and just get encouragement that prayer is so powerful and that God can do anything. And I'm just so grateful that I am where I am. So anyways, just wanted to share that with you guys. I hope everyone's well, and I wish you all the best. God bless.